Call to order, roll call.
Craig,
Yes.
Jody, Joe,
Yes.
Walt,
Yes.
Dylan,
Yes.
Chris, Dana.
Yes.
Dana and Chris aren't here, so do we wanna appoint president pro team, or do we wanna wait till the next meeting? We wanna wait till the next meeting, no one has to make a motion, or we can make a motion to table it. Or you can go ahead and make appointee.
I did speak with Jody today, and she asked if we would wait until the next meeting. I told her I'd pass it on to Craig, and he said he'd pass it on to the board.
Motion table.
Okay. Been properly moved by Dana, second by Walt, to table. Appointment for pro team and elect officers. See none, vote, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries.
So we'll redo all these then.
Next meeting.
Any motion to adjourn that?
Yes.
Roll call, make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second.
Been properly moved by Joe, second by Dylan, to adjourn the meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same motion carries. Now we'll go to a regular board meeting, call to order, roll call.
Craig,
Yes.
Jody, Joe,
Yes.
Walt,
Yes.
Dylan,
Yes.
Chris, Dana.
Yes.
Consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to consent agenda. Second.
Been properly moved by Joe, second by Dylan, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, proceed vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Shall I go personnel?
Personnel? So for personnel, just the recommendation of a new hire for a para-educator for the elementary building. Position that we've had posted for some time. We do have some needs that are hard to cover at times, especially with absences and people being out. So excited to get an applicant, and Mr. Daniels conducted an interview and passed on the recommendation for the new hire of our para.
What's your background?
Mr. Daniels, you want to speak to this at all?
Yeah, she had actually worked in the daycare a couple years ago, and then she was working at a daycare in DeWitt and was looking to get back closer to this way. So I do believe she went in Monday and filled out all the paperwork, and they were in the process of doing like background checks and all that stuff to come back. Right now, obviously waiting for board approval and then some of that stuff to come back. Preschool would be where she's going to be primarily at. We've had continual shortages. We have a special ed position posted there, so that's kind of been a day by day. How can we best fill and support everyone, teachers, students, and everybody regardless. So she would be a support in there is where it would be primarily. So.
Thank you.
You getting any applicants on the special ed position that's been posted for?
We have not.
Nothing?
Nothing.
We actually had, surprisingly, they've sat open for a period of time. And then within a week's time frame, I had both a preschool and a Horizon Valley we had a para position for. And then the Horizon Valley applicant didn't show up to the interview period of time and tried to call, and I think I left like three messages and never got back. So yeah, we haven't had a lot of applicants for those positions that have been open for a while.
Motion to approve personnel.
I'll make a motion to approve personnel as presented.
I'll second.
Been properly moved by Dylan, second by Dana, to approve personnel as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number 5, at-risk coordinator presentation.
Most of you probably know Mrs. Collister. Mrs. Collister's here to present kind of an overview of the work and our conversations. Her and I have regular meetings to kind of check in and just touch base on her role and the related responsibilities that she's overseeing in both of the buildings. And through those conversations, she's been able to share with me a lot of the systems that she's been able to help develop and supports in coordination with some of the key personnel in both buildings that she's helping to deliver and get into place. And I just see such value in what it's bringing to our kids. I might elaborate a little bit on some of the things that she shares, but I just think that her role is a kind of a non-traditional role. Most of us know what a classroom teacher does, but what does an at-risk coordinator do? So I thought it was a good time to bring her in and just kind of showcase a lot of the behind-the-scenes work that she's been helping to lead.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I know my position has changed several times in the last 3 years. This is my third year having this position. As I've shared with my administrators, it's super important for me to have guided feedback so that we can make this position as fluid as possible in trying to address student concerns throughout the district. So it started as a 4-8 position. It's moved to a district position where I get to work more closely with the principals and the superintendent, making sure we're reaching all of our students as much as we can. So I kind of just divided it in how I'm reaching students in the last couple of months, just because my position changed a little bit this year. So I do have 2 teams that I work with in the district. I have an elementary team, and then in this building I also have a team that I work with. Kind of looks a little bit different in each building, but still trying to reach students as much as possible using community resources, using the people that we already have access to in our building, and making sure we're communicating all of those concerns. So these are the people that I get to work with every day. Teachers can report concerns that they have, parents can report concerns, students can report concerns, and then we kind of touch base with the team when those things arise. Throughout the month of August, MTSS was a huge component of how we established what those roles would look like, kind of defines what that process would look like, and how teachers could access those opportunities for students. So that's what we use mainly for the district. The next project I started to work on in August is trying to create opportunities for students to engage in learning opportunities, to create a proactive approach with violations that could occur. So students typically engage in decision making that create consequences that could be detrimental. So I wanted to go through the handbook and look at things that students could face in their period of time at Easton Valley and try to be proactive in that. So like bullying, harassment is a huge thing that we deal with our students. Many times they don't know what bullying is, what harassment is, or what the consequences could be. So as an example, we try to create learning opportunities to make sure students understand that when you're engaging in these behaviors, these are consequences that could occur. And to make sure that when these things happen, you know that this is the consequence that could happen, especially like from elementary, middle school, high school, those consequences change, and sometimes students don't realize, like, holy crap, I did something huge and now I'm suffering this huge consequence in return because before I only had to serve recess or I only had an in-school, and now I'm working with Mr. Gruber and Mr. Cruzy and Mrs. Callister on these huge consequences. So I kind of did this timeline for our staff, for our community members to provide more educational opportunities. So we've had a lot of our community members come into our district and provide this education that says, when these things are happening, these are your options, these are the consequences, and this is how we should handle situations, okay? So my full team you're gonna see twice. So one's by ISU, one is by ASAC. So 2 different types of programs coming into the district, reaching 2 different types of grade levels. And my full team is just like how to be a good kid in society, okay? So parents do a lot of that, teachers do a lot of that. It's just another addition to making better choices when you're on your own. So we had that come in October. They just celebrated their party today in 6th grade. Things went really well with that. The kids were super excited to celebrate. They've been talking about ISU coming in for a long time and some of the projects they've been able to do with that. So it's kind of cool to hear. We also partner with ASAC. So they've been doing a lot of training with mental health. So one of their programs is mental health first aid, and that's just training teachers and students to react to situations of crisis. So if we have a student and their best friend is sharing details of their mental health with them, the student now knows how to react. Like if it's suicide, if it's self-harm, if it's any type of mental health, now our kids are trained to respond appropriately and these kids aren't falling through the cracks. So our students are going to be trained in that in January, and our staff was trained in that last May. Our high school staff was. So kids can come to those individuals and say, hey, I heard this, and I know I'm supposed to react in this way, but I also want to let a first aid responder know that I'm hearing these things and I want to help this person. With our new SRO position, we have a lot of opportunities to present information next semester as well. Chad has a ton of curriculum that he's willing to share. He wants to get into classrooms. He can do assemblies that he's going to start preparing and presenting to a lot of our students in the middle school and high school as well. And then in April, we have Operation Prom. So I don't know if you guys have seen that before. But Nurse Amy does a lot of that stuff. She conducts a lot of those resources, gets that stuff ready. I know Mallory Meyer also helps with like the makeup and stuff for kids, and that has to do with drinking and driving. So can be really hard for our students that go to that. So Mr. Cruzy and I will make sure that kids are being seen for that if they're upset about those situations, but it's a really good opportunity to kind of have those conversations too with kids about those things that could happen. Donate Life Month, we celebrate often with the 2 students that we lost 2 years ago. That memorial will occur tomorrow, so that's the anniversary date. So we always raise a flag in front of our school for them because they did donate a lot when they passed. And then in May, we start doing our transitional meetings for 6th graders coming into 7th grade.
Before we move on, this is probably the one
That's
thing I
okay.
just want to comment on, just to put this into context and the value in it. Back, I think it was like the first, maybe second week of the school year, we had a couple of students that were doing some stuff on their phones that they knew they shouldn't be doing, but they didn't grasp the severity of it, and they ended up getting in, they had significant consequences per our handbook policies and such. And the parents, understood, why they knew their kids did wrong. They understood that we had to enforce the consequences. But I think they talked with Mr. Cruzy, and then they wanted to come and have a conversation with me. And I talked with 2 different parents, and then they just said, hey, we get it. Our kid messed up. They should have known better. But we just feel like if something positive could come from this, how can we better educate our student body on the seriousness of these things so that other kids don't do something that they think is relatively innocent and then get a good conduct and other, school disciplinary action thrown at them. So after that time, I was able to meet with Mrs. Collister and just say, because I agreed with the parents, how do we do a better job of educating all of our kids, even back as early as 5th and 6th grade or younger? So I was able to have a meeting shortly after that with Mrs. Collister, and I kind of tasked her with, hey, would you please go through our handbook and let's flag some things that we could do a better job of educating our kids on earlier on, and also informing them of the consequences of the actions that they're taking. So she took that and ran. She went through the handbook, and her next meeting she brought that to me. She said, I flagged this thing, and this thing. And I was like, awesome, yes, that's spot on. Now, can you put together a systematic way where every year we're hitting these same things. I don't want this to be a one-off. How can we do this in a way so we ensure that our kids get this important information on a yearly basis? And so then, she went back, worked with others, connected with administrators, other agencies, and put together a strategic approach to just better informing our students of the seriousness of their actions as they get into those upper elementary and then junior high and high school grades. So I appreciated the initiative that she took in doing so.
Any questions on these things?
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Do we track the students that have some mental health issues on enrollment? And what's the parents' involvement in this, if there's any?
So your question is wanting to know how many kids that we have, that we see for mental health issues?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, when they come into our building, we don't know that right away until the crisis happens. Later on in the presentation, I'll go through kind of how we respond to those situations, how it's documented, what the plan is. I feel like in this grade level, those kids are experiencing different mental health issues depending on what they're dealing with. So we don't always know it until something happens. Sometimes, like when I do the transitional meetings, I'll meet with junior high teachers and say, so-and-so kind of dealt with this last year, if you can keep an eye on that. We don't really have a plan in place for them, but it's something they experience that we want to keep an eye on moving forward. And then if something happens, we can create a mental health plan, we can create a safety plan that we meet with parents and administration and teachers are aware of to keep an eye on. Is that your question?
You want to know how many mental health plans we have?
No, my real answer to the question that I was looking for is, the answer is, are we tracking it? So if we have a student that's hasn't been plagued for mental issues and missing a lot of school, hey, maybe we should check in with that student. Because based on our past experience with kids missing a bunch of classes or school, that they might have issues. Like what?
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, we do deeper dives into it. Like if there's attendance issues that come up and we're unaware of why, like then there's phone calls, there's meetings set up immediately. Sometimes there's home visits done by Brooke or myself or Chad and Brooke. But it's definitely dug into more about the whys.
I just don't want the kids falling through the cracks.
Yep. The same with failures of classes and that's coming up too. We'll examine first semester and take a look, okay, if a kid failed a class, like why did they fail a class, and trying to get down to the deeper root of what's going on. We're not going to make the class easier. We're going to figure out why, why they're not being successful in it. Is it just missing work? Is it other issues going on at home? Is there other issues, with them just personally that they're working through right now? So that's kind of all wrapping around that at-risk team of what's going on with those types of kids.
It'd be nice if they came with a little light that said,
Yeah.
And
look at me, I need help.
real quick, if I can, on the elementary, it's the same thing with that at-risk team. They meet every Wednesday. And so that would be Destiny Kilberg, social worker, Brooke, at-risk, and then Stacy Deutsch is our school counselor. And so they meet, and we have a whole process laid out of teachers trying to report concerns of, what's coming on the radar, how long has it been on the radar, what are we seeing? And then they work through that process with student updates of knowing, are we to tier 1, tier 2? Then they work as a team with the teacher to decide what supports does that kid need. Do we need to reach out? Does the kid need touch base time during the day? On that team, in the elementary, that team gets together every week and decides those course of action. So.
Thank
You had another question.
Hope you answered it.
Okay. You'll have more, I'm sure. Okay, September was a little more into the attendance piece. The state of Iowa has a new law that basically says if your kids aren't in the chair in the classroom, it's unexcused. Really the only reason they're excusing absences if it's surgery or if they're on some sort of plan. So parents are really struggling with that concept because if your kiddos are sick, they're really not going to get much out of the educational experience throughout the day, and kind of keeping them home is better for them, but the state doesn't really see it that way. So when I'm working with my teams and trying to establish this attendance protocol, you know, it's expected of the school to lay the hammer, but the county attorney is not following through with that. And they don't have to because the law doesn't say they do. So when I spoke with Mr. Fee about this, in my opinion, I felt like we needed to do a better job of partnering with our families. Making sure they understand, like, we agree with you, like if your kid has a fever or they're puking or they have strep throat, the best bet is to keep them home, get them better so that when they come to school, they're ready to learn and they're feeling good about it. The state doesn't always say that. So we were trying to come up with a policy that helped with that. So I sent this attendance piece out that said, like, I'd really like to do this courtesy call first because I feel like a lot of our families don't know that. So if I'm sending a truancy letter right out of the bat here after missing 5 to 6 days, they're gonna be on the defensive side. And I don't really want to build that relationship with our families. So I was doing these courtesy calls or emails, just letting them know, like, hey, you've reached so many days, just to let you know this is the new law. We do support your family in making the best decision for your child, but just know the law says we have to send these letters and we want to try to work with you as best as we can. So when these letters are coming to your home, just know that's what this means. So eventually we'll get to this family engagement meeting, which is, in my opinion, the biggest component of the attendance piece. So in this engagement meeting, I can meet with families and say, hey, you provided doctor notes, you brought the kids as much as you can, you kept them home when you needed to. The engagement meeting says, you know, attendance is important. As long as you're sending your kids the best that you can, then we're good to go. In every situation, we do have families that don't always follow that, right? They're keeping their kids home inappropriately or not sending them when they should be. And those engagement meetings would be more aggressive in saying, like, hey, you really got to bring your kids to school. They're falling behind in academics. We really want to see them improve in these areas. We can help with checking in with the nurse. We can help with checking in with mental health to make sure that they're good to go for the academic day. So that's really what our county attorney is going to be asking about when I take cases to him, is what's being said in these engagement meetings and what has the school done, what has the parents done. So I try to document all of those conversations, all of those pieces that are coming in, so that when I do have to go meet with him, we have an answer on what direction we're going with.
Brooke, how many families do we have approximately right now that would be at that family engagement meeting level?
I've only sent one second notice letter, and that was last week. Everyone else is at the 6 to 8 day ratio. I do have a family going on vacation next month that will skip all of the steps because he's been to school every single day, but they're taking a month-long vacation. So he will, and I have a meeting with the county attorney tomorrow to say, do you want me to skip every step and just bring him straight to you, or how do you want me to do that? Otherwise, the families have been pretty compliant with the information I sent to them. At the high school, it's a little different because it's per block. So like, if kids aren't interested in attending a certain class, they're skipping one block I don't know, if it's every other day or every day. Those conversations look a little bit different than it does at the elementary. So we have to document that a little bit differently because the law says by hours. And we measure our days by hours. Students are measured by hours. So we kind of have to calculate that a little bit differently. Otherwise, if no one misses this week, we have this break and we come back into January with no snow days or no illnesses, we'll be good for a while because it's per grading period. And elementary does trimesters, the high school does semesters, so.
I have another question. Kind of the same thing. If a family moves into our district and they don't register their kids for school, we don't know that they're.
We don't know.
We don't know. So that someone could move in to an apartment or whatever with their 3 kids that could be school age kids and they don't send them to school.
I call him. He loves those calls.
Just,
Yeah, we don't normally know. Like, if we lose a kid, like, if a family's like, well, we're gonna homeschool, or he's gonna go with his dad, I will follow up with that. Like, I will keep communicating with the parent, like, are you homeschooling? Because we need paperwork to document that. Did the student actually go to Wisconsin? Because we never received a transfer of information. So I try to keep up on that if that's what's happening, but if the kid is currently living in our district, not attending, we don't have any idea.
okay.
Unless you guys have a different answer.
Like we, for example, had a student in the elementary that was moving out, and I said, just make sure you request that enrollment paperwork, because otherwise if you don't, then technically you're still a resident here, and then you get on this truancy list. And I would say that family was kind of like, oh, but, you know, kind of trying to play left and right. I said, hey, I just want this to go smoothly for everyone, and, you know, in that case, you are still, if you're living in Wisconsin but don't request transfer paperwork, you're still being run as truant here, so.
But yeah, it does happen that people move in and we have no idea that they're like, once in a while you'll get the old district out call because they heard there's somebody that might be moved into your district, and then we can kind of work together with them to help figure it out. But there are times, yeah, that we just don't know.
Do you have anything? Sometimes they'll go on calls and be like, do you know this kid, or is he a student, or where's this student going to school at? So we kind of do a little there, but we don't know.
We haven't seen an increased paper cost.
No.
I mean, at the school board convention, Johnston County spent an extra $50,000 on paper trying to get all the first and second notices out, and they were really mad about it.
I can't imagine why.
Certified mail.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it was costing quite a bit.
Yeah. So that's the fun stuff with attendance. Because of the new law, I drafted some new policies so that our handbook would match the new law. So we will get those sent out for next year so that it's matching all of those things. Mostly September, we did have an increase in crisis situations, but we kind of see that typically with September anyways, because we're starting school, kids are transitioning, things are different. So we're responding to those situations. So this was the time we took to build up our community resources. We have a contact list that's shared with the team so that when things arise, we know who we're calling, who's supporting us. Life Connections is a huge partner in our buildings. They provide therapy to a lot of our students. So we have 3 people that represent Easton Valley, which is awesome because we only had 1 before. So that's a really good partner. Eastern Iowa Mental Health also partners with our co-responder. So those are people I can call at any time. It's no charge to Easton Valley at all. And they will do free check-ins based on their program that they're funded by the state. So it's kind of nice when something happens, I can call and be like, can you help me check in with this kid, do an assessment, help me with the direction we're gonna go with this kid. We also have a Jackson County co-responder that was hired this year. She mostly works in Macokota, but you know, if I shoot her a text or an email that says, hey, do you want to hang out at Easton Valley today, or do you want to help me check in with some of these kids, she will do that. Eagle View is, they're kind of like a hospital, but not. Like, I can walk in with a patient with them. Sometimes they might be full and they can't take my kids right away. So I always start with them. If we have a huge crisis, I'll take kids there. Otherwise, we go to the emergency room and then we're transferred to Eagle View. So they're in Bettendorf. And then, of course, DHS, that everyone knows about.
Do you feel like you have enough resources right now, or do you always need more?
I would say mental health always needs more. I feel like we don't ever have enough. The huge barrier is like insurance, payments, spots for kids. In general, I feel like the consensus of kids needing help is way different than what we're used to. Like, we're seeing more people ask for help than we ever did before because they know it's okay to ask for help now, whereas before it was like, suck it up, figure it out. So I feel like our school counselors do a better job of the middle ground of that stuff. Like, we'll help you, we'll support you until we can find something that works. But these are for more crisis situations. Any questions on that? All right, October nationally is known as Bullying Harassment Month. So our school counselors do a lot of work with that in general anyways. They're in the classrooms talking about bullying harassment. We also found time to help teachers process our MTSS program. Now that we have students we can implement through that program, it was more, let's practice, let's work through this to understand how that works. So we did a lot of that. We also decided to help teachers with Tier 1 plans, like you've been complaining about this student, not complaining, having issues with this student for a while now. Let's set this up. I'll show you how to write this, what interventions we can use to support this student, and what data we need collected for the Tier 1 plan before we move to a Tier 2 plan. We also wanted to help teachers with some management support, so like reminding teachers of the Tier 1 interventions they can already be implementing in their rooms, giving them ideas on how to support challenging students, offering support and help to go in if they needed that. Was a lot of the work we did for October. Any questions on that one? November, we took a lot of the data from October with the bullying and harassment, and we decided to do an assessment of how much information kids gained from the educational piece of bullying and harassment. And so after those assessments, our at-risk team went through that and said, okay, there's a huge disconnect with information about what bullying actually is and how students are responding to it. So I organized and pulled small groups in 5th and 6th grade and sat with them and kind of talked through what bullying is, what harassment is, what it looks like, how you can respond to those situations, and the investigations that we do. So the investigations are pretty serious things that we do for bullying and harassment, and a lot of the kids had this huge light bulb moment of like, holy crap, I need to make sure I'm not doing this anymore and making kids feel like this anymore, because it's a huge deal and the consequences are pretty big when I get to junior high. So that was a huge conversation piece. Our elementary team also sat down and drafted safety plans, health plans, and mental health plans. So we have a lot of people working with kids, wanting to help as much as they can, but maybe not following the right steps to get there. So we wanted to draft a plan that says, make sure you're covering these steps when working with these students. A huge piece of that is partnering with our parents, making sure parents know, like, hey, I'm meeting with your kid about these concerns, and understanding, like, we want to do what's best for them, and we know you guys want to do what's best for them, and making sure all of our staff members are following that. So I just did a screenshot of an example of one of the ones that we worked on. So we'll work with principals to get that established, and then we'll bring it to you guys for that. Any questions on that? December, Chad had this great idea. He doesn't want me to give credit for that. Of a mentoring program that we want to do for kids that are struggling with behaviors. We want to partner them with people in the community that are successful, that may not have liked school so much when they were here, but actually are using what we did for them here now in the workforce. So I created this format to help establish how we're going to do that. So Chad's been out in the community asking people if they want to come in and work with our kids. And Mr. Irwin has been working on a list of kids that would benefit from meeting with mentors 30 minutes a week, kind of talking through like their career goals, their academic goals, what they want to do, how we can help support them, try to deter behaviors that are happening in the building. So that's the mentoring program. December is also a busy month for NHS. I'm the sponsor for NHS, so we did Shop with a Cop last Thursday. We're going to deliver presents for the Angel Tree tomorrow. So we had 45 families for the Angel Tree. So that will take us 2 full days to organize and deliver those presents. In addition to, we also have families and businesses that will sponsor some of our families, like diapers, formula, hygiene, cleaning products that we'll have to deliver to. Each month I meet with the Jackson County Diversion Team. So in that meeting, Chad and I will go, and he helps create the Second Chance program. So kids that are committing crimes will have an opportunity to be placed in our Second Chance program. Basically, it's more like community service and helping them not like lay the hammer down right away. Like, hey, you messed up, you did something stupid. We're not sending you through the system right away. We're gonna give you the second chance with community service and resources and those types of things. I also have to attend the attendance conference every month in Dubuque. I meet with Chris every month. I meet with ASAC every month. And I touch base with our co-responder every month. Talk about resources. This is the plan that we came up with for the Second Chance program. So we have it on level tiers depending on whatever the charges are. And then we have consequences at the bottom that we'll do for that. Any questions on the Second Chance program? You wanted a full picture of that, didn't you, Craig? Every meet, I meet with my team. We'll talk about student cases. We'll talk about how we can support teachers and students and help implement those supports. This is the MTSS system we're looking at for our junior high and high school kiddos. SWIT team is working on a lot of those supports along with the at-risk team to make sure teachers are implementing Tier 1 before we start implementing Tier 2. Lighthouse team meetings and elementary attendance reports each week, and then every day I'm just kind of checking in with the kids that are on our list. If there's student behaviors occurring, responding to those, and working with families on attendance. I'm done, Craig. Too long?
Just right.
Let's go.
That was good.
All right. You guys have any questions?
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
Anyone else need this?
I will shortly. Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Yes. Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Presentation on the audit report.
Yeah, so as you can recall, our auditors, they've been behind ever since COVID. Probably in the newspaper, I don't know if it was this week or when they get the release out, there was our audit report from fiscal year 23 is finally final, even though we were audited last year. I think it was in January. This year we moved up to December. We just finished up earlier this week. I'll go over what that a few comments were on that. Hopefully every year they get a little bit faster. We'd like to get back to where we're getting audited in July or August or September and have a report on a timely basis. That's kind of on them, and they've been good to work with, and they're slowly catching up. I mean, obviously it's been almost 5 years since the whole COVID pandemic, but just kind of getting through that. One of the struggles with that is being a small school district. When we send out audit RFPs, there's only a handful of firms in the state that are even able to take on a government entity to do the district's audit. We use Nolte, Corman, and Johnson. They do about half the schools in the state, which is a good thing and a bad thing. They're good at what they do, but obviously when they fell behind due to staff shortages and stuff, it takes them a while to catch up. So for the last several years, we're supposed to have our audit filed with the state by March. every year we've gotten that waived. The state has a waiver that you file, and they approve it to be waived, and then we stay on the auditors and try to get it back as timely as possible. So it's a little confusing. So our fiscal year 23 audit is just getting released finally to the state in November here, and then what we're going to talk about is we just wrapped up our FY24 audit. If you remember last month, I presented some numbers that were unofficial. Those are all official numbers now, everything checked out. They go through and look at a variety of different things with anywhere from our financial statements to how we pay people, how we use categorical funding from the federal and state levels, our board policies, how we handle day-to-day operations in the office, and several other criteria. And had a great audit this year. Everything checked out like I said, that we presented fund balance wise. A few things though that they mentioned to work on. One, segregation of duties. It's a comment that we have every year. It's one that I don't personally ever see a district this size ever being able to totally get away from that. The problem is we just don't have enough staff. It's the reality of most small districts. There's no way to go about something where the same person doesn't do 2 or 3 or 4 steps of a process that, ideally they would like somebody different. We try to do the best we can, and I get kind of not argumentative with an auditor, but in my mind, I think they're a little harsh on our district here compared to how I know other small districts do it, because we try with cash and different processes with that. I mean, we have minimum 3 hands and sometimes 4 hands throughout the process, but then it's I see stuff, on my end, say an example of why they say it's not totally segregated as good as it is in a district office where you have, the 4 to 6 full-time employees, because a step like cash, if it comes into the office, they get a receipt, then it goes to the business office and say Kathy takes it into the bank, and then I can fill out a deposit slip, and then I do our bank rec. So I'm doing two of the processes. That's just an example of why I said I don't see it ever going away, because there is really no way to get away from that. It's not a big deal. I mean, we've never found anything, they've never found anything, to want to dig into deeper. It's just something that they're required to report, because if there's multiple people doing multiple processes in any of the categories of cash, investments, our payroll system, anywhere financial report, journal entries, etc., they want a process with 4 or 5 people's hands on it. We just obviously can't do that. So that's one area. And then the only other comment that we got for FY24 is, and I think I even touched base on this, we do have, there's 2 things with our student activity account. We have 2 accounts that were deficit at the end of the fiscal year. It was football and baseball. Sometimes fundraisers just don't line up right with the expenses they've had. We monitor, coaches get told what their balances are. That's an easy one to work with them. It's just the way that the fiscal year end lined up. They were negative at the time of it. Required to get an audit count on that. And then with our student activity also, we have a few accounts that sit inactive, and it's always one of those hard things on what to do with that, because if they sit inactive for a few years, you're technically supposed to review them, and as a board, make a decision on what's the closest thing. Say that we had, I don't know, a good example. Say you had junior high baseball, and then you all of a sudden didn't have junior high baseball anymore. Obviously, a thing to do with that was just let the varsity baseball team have that money. It gets a little more complicated when you have things like a Spanish club or FBLA or something like that. If you have a teacher leave the district that was very adamant and did those clubs, and then you get a new teacher and they don't do that, and it goes on for a few years. It's a board discretion thing, but is it the right thing to do to take that money and throw it to something that was never, even close of a fundraise purpose? So you can, but it just seems crazy to me to take FBLA money and then say, okay, we're going to give that to the basketball team. And after a few years, that's the recommendation. So what we'll do with that is we'll come at a different meeting and re-go over what those accounts were and the options the board have, and we can go any direction with that. But that was it. Those 3 comments were all that we got for our audit. They went through and they checked our related party transactions. They were all good. They checked our categorical funding, like I said. They noted no instances of supplanting instead of supplementing funds. Our certified annual reports filed on time, no errors with that. We're in compliance with all our deposits and investments requirements. our certified enrollment supplemental weighting checked out at the state level. All of our taxes and IPER payments were made on time. So all in all, good experience. I just think that I always like to take this opportunity because not only here, but we also wrapped up audits at Andrew and Delwood also, and the sharing agreement between 3 schools only works because we have good staff at all the schools, and Kathy is a big player in the stuff that we do here, and when you go through an audit and they look at everything under a microscope for that many days, you know, we compile a lot of stuff and send it off to them, have a lot of communication during the process with them, and they'll come out with just a couple comments like that that are pretty minor in my opinion, that I think that it's a big round of applause for the work that gets done. It's pretty quiet, you know, like it goes on behind the scenes, but it's an important part of a school district, and it's appreciated the help that I have at all the 3 districts, so.
That has been impressive.
Yeah, sounds good, thanks.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for?
Any questions?
How long does the audit normally take?
What's that?
How long do they normally?
So a couple days, but like actual like communication back and forth with them, but before they even get here anymore, with being able to send stuff electronically and compile data, it probably is more like, you know, a week long if I had to assign an amount of days to it, and then they'll be back in contact. So this was their fieldwork portion of it, and then between now and hopefully March, they would get the report done and get submitted to the state on time because they have everything they need to do it. But like I said, they are behind, and it's a known thing with this firm. But then there's, you know, obviously back and forth dialogue with them actually off and on throughout the entire year. So but about a week's worth of time.
Any other questions? Then we'll proceed. Presentation needs assessment survey data.
All right, so last month we had a needs assessment that was put out to our community. Multiple reminders and such were sent out asking anybody in our school community to provide feedback. So right here is kind of a breakdown, roughly 250 respondents. The way, I'm going to flip over to another presentation because I asked the individual who helps administer the survey to organize the data in the same way that he has, that's been presented to you in the past. But before we do that, I just want to show you a few key pieces. So if you look here, on the next report, we'll look at, you know, how the data breaks down by board and staff members. So if you look here, you know, 2 administrators, 1 board member, 24 teachers. So, you know, roughly, you know, 25-ish respondents in that category. The other category is parents and community members, so just over 100 there. And then students, 136. And I believe that's all the students that took it over here. Mr. Cruzy, would that have been, it was, we had 7 through 12? Yep. So that's kind of the breakdown, and then the way they answered the questions, kind of 3 different responses generally that they would provide. Well, I guess I can share this with you real quick. This is how the respondents identified themselves as being most closely connected with, you know, 73 at the elementary, a much larger number because of the student population that filled it out over here at the junior high and high school, and then 44 in both buildings where they were connected to. When they gave their responses, it kind of broke it down like very well, neutral, or needs improvement, or a majority of the questions just asked them to rank, you know, the response to each question as, you know, very well, neutral, or needs improvement, or agree, neutral, and disagree. So there were generally 3 responses that they could give to each answer. That's relevant because I'm going to flip over here and I'm going to show you how it compares year to year. So this is the 3rd year where we've issued a survey asking the same questions. And what you'll see, like up at the top above the years, it's just showing, this is going to be consistent on all the questions I show you, it's just showing the percent that agree. So, you know, the percent that agree doesn't mean, like, if 44% agreed, it doesn't mean that, 56% disagreed. It means 56% were either neutral or disagreed. But the way that he organized it, which is the same as it's done in the past, is just looking at the percent that agree to each thing. So we could spend hours going through this. When he organizes it, it's Tony Vanderzeel. He's contracted through the Iowa School Board Association and does this for over 100 districts across the state. He kind of organizes the data, then the responses to the questions, some big kind of overarching categories per se. And so what I'd like to do is when I review the data, I've just been able to kind of identify some trends. So I just want to point out those trends tonight, and then if you want to dig into anything specific, we can go as deep as you'd like tonight. But I think the most value is in using the data, get it in the hands of like our student body, get it in the hands of our SIAC group, get it in the hands of our building leadership teams to ask, why and how do we improve the data year to year. So the first piece here, do our stakeholders believe that our students are learning at high levels? That's kind of the overarching piece. One big theme that I see, so over on the left column is the board and the staff feedback. And then, blue, green, orange shows you the responses from 22, 23 to 2024. It's all pretty comparable data other than the student one, just because in the first year that we did it, we only issued it to seniors. So, that year we probably had 30 students complete it, whereas in the past year or two, we've had 130 plus students complete that survey. So, with that in mind, I'll just kind of share with you the big theme that I see, and then I'll flip through and you can take a look and see if anything jumps out at you. But basically, the board and the staff is, as you go through, it's kind of up and down, hit and miss. When you look at the parents and community, the trajectory is really an upward slope. If you go from like 22 to 23 to 24, it pretty consistently grows across every single question that I'm going to share with you. And then also, we kind of see a converse pattern when we look at students, where the trajectory is particularly downward on each of the questions. So the questions under this are students performing at a high level. I'm just going to click through here. Current level of student achievement in the district is sufficient to prepare students for beyond high school. Amount of offerings in our district is sufficient. All children have the ability to reach high levels of achievement. District's assessments do a good job of measuring data and student learning. Rigor of the Iowa standards are fully implemented in our district. All students are adequately challenged based on their academic needs. Student learning drives our professional development. So those are kind of those key questions. So in that first category. So I'm going to real quick, I'm just going to go back to the top and just take a look at what I'm seeing. As you look at parents and community, it's, I think, across the board. Up. So much more positive feedback as far as parent and community respondents that agreed with those statements. But then likewise, when we look at students, down. So an interesting pattern there, and one that begs a lot of questions that I think we need to dig deeper to get answers into. But I think, talking with our students and getting our student leaders involved and tapping into student council, like, hey, why are your classmates answering things like this? What can we do better? Why would you answer differently than the year before? I think it will be really good and valuable information to take action on. So the next piece, areas the district does very well. Student achievement, same kind of thing. If you look at the patterns here, downward trajectory for parents, upward trajectory for parents, downward for students. Preparing students for success beyond high school. Student engagement. Effective teaching. Parental involvement. Communication. Safe learning environment. Individual needs of all students are met. Effective teaching and assessments. Social and emotional needs. So again, like I shared, just kind of that same pattern, and it's consistent all the way throughout. If we proceed to the next category, stakeholders believe that our students, staff, and family, that their engagement is a priority. If you kind of look there, shared understanding of what we're trying to improve. have a voice in decision-making. Students are actively engaged in classroom learning tasks. Schools maximize the time available to educate our students. Parents are informed of their children's progress. Parents and community members are valued partners. District adequately communicates important information to families and community. So that was that category. The next one, do our stakeholders believe that our key educational teams are being effective in their roles? School board is effective in leading our district.
Kids are harsh.
They are harsh, I tell you what. Administration is effective in leading our district and schools. Teaching staff is effective in leading their classrooms. And that's the conclusion of the survey. So, like I said, we can dig into a lot of individual things, but just those trends are very interesting. And it's odd that the student feedback is really kind of the opposite as far as what parental feedback is. So it's good. We want our parents to view our schools in a positive light, and it's good to see that increase. But odd and concerning that we're seeing a decrease in some of the positive feedback from students.
Have you ever went down the path of we talked to a lunch with the people out there as a student board member? They have a student that's elected by the students and they sit on the board. They don't actually have any governing power, but they get to voice their opinion at every board meeting and get to sit on some of the stuff, I guess.
I had lunch at the table as well with a different district, and they had a student board representative that got elected to the board just as kind of a, like, they don't think they vote on
Right,
decisions.
they're just somebody that's in the room and gets to report back and give a different perspective. They said they present at every meeting.
Yeah. It sure gives some additional insight into some questions that this begs here. What's the rest of the board think about that idea?
But if only one of the years you had the seniors doing the survey, those numbers are correct.
No, yeah, that throws it off. You're right. I still kind of saw the pattern just comparing in 23 to 24, but you're correct that it is a little bit misleading if you look at all three of those lines.
Obviously, we plan to keep implementing the survey year after year after year.
Yep, correct. Joe, one thing I can do is reach out to some of the districts who do that, just
Right.
ask, what's their process or protocol for electing them, and how long are they on, and what's their
Right.
actual role?
They said
That's not on the agenda, so we
Yeah,
discuss it.
We can go on the next one, and you can research it then.
sounds good.
Well, I just not on the agenda, so.
Any other specific questions that you all, I shared this data with you, so if you dig in deeper and want to come back and ask more questions or have conversations, at a school level or something, then we can definitely do something.
Can we get a copy of that? If you know?
It should be shared with you.
Okay, yeah, we did.
Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Oh, I did have it, yes.
yep. If you have trouble finding it,
Yep.
ask me.
Yep, no, I just have trouble today.
Technology.
Technology, too many Gmails.
Any questions?
Any questions? If not, then move on. Approved sixth grade field trip.
All right, so sixth grade is requesting a field trip, and the way our policy reads is any trip that's for a prolonged period or just might be of a more substantial nature, that it's advised that we bring it to the board. So this was a trip that came to my attention from our elementary. Our sixth grade group would like to take students on a trip. It just extends outside of the regular school day a little bit because it is a bit of a drive to Cantigny Park over in Illinois, but I was able to share kind of an itinerary with you so you can see what that all entailed. I don't know if you have additional questions or for me or for Mr. Daniels, but in my review of it, it looks like a phenomenal opportunity that connects to the sixth grade learning standards and would be a great experience and a memorable experience for our students. Any questions on that?
I'll make a motion to approve the sixth grade field trip.
Probably moved by Joe, second by Will to approve the sixth grade field trip. Is there any discussion? I'm assuming there'll be chaperones that'll have to be approved and drivers.
I don't know.
Yeah, so they didn't talk
Staff
about that so
or-
much. Obviously, there'd be 2 staff members, and then they're gonna have to take a bus when they go. But it was just more, families will have to get the kids into school a little early and then pick them up from school. But otherwise, it's free, and they put together the itinerary and all that good stuff. It was just because of the distance. Right here, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Approve Easton Valley students for early graduation.
So we do have a few, 4 to be exact, students who have met the requirements. These are in addition to the list that I brought to you last month. These students all meet the graduation requirements. There was a question that came my way and Mr. Cruzy's way about attending prom. And so Mr. Cruzy spoke with the student who was, I think, looking into it on behalf of some of his classmates, and Mr. Cruzy said, if you want that to be considered, I want you to write up the rationale and present that to me. And so I believe you had that. Do you want to just take it to the background and what their perspective is?
Sure. Past practice, or at least the past few years, if a kid graduates early, then they can't participate in anything, including prom. The student and a couple other ones put together a PowerPoint for me, got it to me today about why early grad seniors should be allowed to do prom, and they actually came with solutions to some of the things that came up, because I said, well, one of the things is that if they're not a student here, they don't abide by any of their school policies anymore, so they could have been going out and doing whatever and then still get in there. So they did bring some solutions to that. Their big things were they worked hard to get done early. They passed all their classes, met everything there. They don't actually get their diplomas until everybody else walks anyway in the spring. They've worked hard at raising money since 7th grade to all go to prom and to put into that, so that they're not allowed to do any of those things if they can't participate in that. Some of them are just trying to get a head start on life and want to get into the workforce or get out to college and feel like they're being punished by wanting to do that. That prom is kind of a final goodbye to all the seniors, and they just wanted to be a part of those kind of things yet. They said something about putting in a senior prom rule or something like that. This is what he kind of said it was. But basically what it comes down to would be that if they got in trouble, like I suggested, just communicating back, that if they got in trouble with law enforcement or anything like that from when they graduated early to prom time, then they would be ineligible to go to prom. But otherwise, I think they provide some valid points there. I don't see a lot of rationale behind holding it against them to attend our prom, especially if they sign that form and their parents still sign that form that says we have not been in trouble with the law, we're in good standing as a citizen there, and participate just as any other senior would be. It is my opinion of that, but I just said they did a great job, they went right to it, so I was bringing that to the board meeting here, and you get feedback from there and then kind of get back to them on that. But it's my personal opinion is that they should be allowed to go to prom.
And I don't know if you said it. If you did, I apologize that I missed it, but the concern they had was just kind of the proportional aspect of it. Like they don't have a super large graduating class to begin with, so then if you take 10 kids out of it, just the impact that has on the overall prom experience, not just for them, but also for the rest of their class. And
They just put that in there, I just didn't feel like it.
Yeah, I thought that was relevant as well for the whole student body.
I don't see any why they couldn't.
I mean, if they're not gonna be able to go to prom, then why would we let them go to graduation ceremonies that day? We'd let them
Could be
go
the
to
same.
Or come back from a basketball game or
Yeah.
anything inside the school, it don't make much sense.
And I couldn't find anywhere that it was actual board policy or anything like that. It's just the way that it has been done the last little while. So I said we would bring it up and review it. And I thought it was great of them. They put that slideshow together. They did it in a day and got it back to me right away. And happy they had valid points and good solutions.
So if we approve the early graduation, do we throw in there too that, that
I would say, yeah, approve. I don't think they have
Or if it's not policy or anything like that.
Policy, but that might be
Yeah.
something that we need
That's
to
not what I'm
look at
wondering.
changing going forward, or put it in a.
Actually, we could put it like in the early graduation policy or how that goes, we can throw that in that they're still eligible. We can do that next year in our policy change, so.
Sure.
I make a motion, we approve early graduation.
Second.
Been properly moved by Dana, seconded by Joe to approve early graduation of the 4 students. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Approve modified allowable growth request.
That's a request for modified allowable growth or spending authority for students that are attending other districts this year through open enrollment that weren't on 2 falls ago head count, which produces the funding for this year. We still have to pay for those students. The state allows you to request spending authority. This year that would amount to $125,437, and my recommendation would be a motion to approve that.
Any questions?
That's the money we pay to the other schools.
Yeah, it's for other schools. So there's 3 different criteria that you can ask for this round of modified allowable growth. One is if your own enrollment grows, your certified enrollment, because same thing would happen. Like say that we had 15 new kids this year above and beyond what our head count was 2 falls ago. We would be educating them. The state recognizes that there's expenses with those kids. You don't get the money. If they're attending Northeast, Bellevue, Dubuque, wherever, through open enrollment, those schools are going to bill us for the appropriate cost per pupil amounts. We didn't get money for them, so they allow us to ask for it. That's what the request is for.
And that's what special ed then too.
What's that? Special ed. They get billed on a different billing system.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the modified allowable request for enrollment.
Second.
Been properly moved by Dylan, seconded by Joe to approve the allowable growth request at an amount of $125,437. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Keep those students here.
Approved purchase of new library cabinets.
So I'm excited about this recommendation just because it's kind of some out of the box thinking, but I think it's going to have a substantial impact in our elementary as far as space that's available to support the needs of staff and students. This was something that it was probably 6 weeks ago at this point that Mr. Daniels called me in, asked me to stop by, take a look at some things. We walked the school, we looked at some spaces. We have 2 rooms currently where they're just basically book rooms. So we have shelving on the walls, books for lower elementary in one, upper elementary books in the other, but 2 nice size, office spaces. And we always struggle to have additional space for a lot of our staff that work in the building every day, but especially some of the people that support on an intermittent basis, whether it be school-based therapy or area education agency colleagues that support the work we do, things like that, where we do struggle to find like open space. And so Mr. Daniels was trying to think of a way to create some additional spots for people to conduct their work, and brought to me this plan, which I'm recommending tonight. It involves putting new cabinetry in our elementary library. So it would be on 3 walls, other than the wall that's adjacent to the cafeteria. It'd be the other 3 walls, like the wall, if you're sitting there at a board meeting, to your left and right, and then behind you. And we asked our facility team to work with a contractor to find wood that would kind of match the color and grain and stuff of the existing bookshelves in there, so that it looked nice and looked like it was supposed to be there. But by putting the new cabinetry in, it allows us to move all the books out of these 2 rooms. And so we get all the books into a space that's dedicated for that. They're not spots where kids are taking books. They're like sets of reading books for teachers if they're working with like a small reading group. They'll go and pull a set of like 6 books of like Mr. Popper's Penguins, and then, distribute to those kids in a small group and read through that together in a guided reading group. So they're not intended for students to be able to access, so having them up high doesn't restrict any access to the books. They were in these offices anyway, the kids already did not have access to. The recommendation is for the purchase of the new cabinetry for $11,548. And when you look at the opportunity to free up 2 office spaces for a little over $11,000, that is one heck of a deal. So I just commend Mr. Daniels and the staff of that building to get creative and think out of the box and maximize the space that we are so lucky to have. Mr. Daniels, would you add anything to what I shared?
No, I think the only thing I would add is, like we have a crunch with AEA, like he mentioned, and Life Connections was in Brooks' thing earlier. Now it's been a constant sort of like if we had vision screening, and our Life Connections has been using that kind of mutual conference room in the front office, if that makes sense. So we never, and if we shuffled it right now, Monday is the crunch day, but if we moved it to Wednesday, then Wednesday would be the crunch day, depending on when the personnel's in here. So it would just open up flexibility there. And then the other big picture would be, I mentioned earlier, having that preschool special ed position posted. We would also, if that gets filled, hopefully, we would need to find a place where those students would be pushed into the room getting their core learning. And then if they come out of the room, we would need to find a place where right now we don't have a location for them to go. So that would also open up some flexibility in the bigger picture of, which staff is utilizing which spaces and how we can accommodate something like that too. So just kind of a logical move on a lot of fronts, to be honest with you. Plus, there's nothing, we wouldn't really need any additional input into the rooms. The rooms are ready. We have the desks and things like that to put in. We'd just be getting storage out of finished rooms and into cabinets is really all it is. So.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of new library cabinets.
Sorry.
Properly moved by Dana, second by Joe to purchase new library cabinets in the amount of $11,548.59. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. For purchase of electronic door access system upgrades.
Yep, so this one, these next 3 items are all associated with our school safety improvements and funding that was made available to us through the state of Iowa. This recommendation is a recommendation that came from our safety team that met over at the elementary. One of the concerns is we have students propping doors open. A lot of the time for our high school basketball practices or volleyball practices, where kids leave this building and go over to the elementary, and then what they're doing is, there's a lot of students and families exiting out the main doors, and so they're going in the doors that are right there, kind of between the art and music room, closest to the gym. But then, every kid doesn't show up at the same time. So aside from having a coach or a student, stand there at the door for a half hour while kids are all kind of trickling in, we'd like to be able to have the ability to buzz kids in. And so what this would do is it would put access for someone that's coming in to keep the door locked. A student shows up, they can buzz it. There will be an attached intercom with a video monitor in the gym. And so someone right there in the gym, like a coach, as kids are walking in, can buzz kids right in. Oh, you got one kid that's a half hour late for practice. Oh, they can come and get buzzed right in. So it allows us to maintain more of that secure entrance without having to prop doors, because we know that that's highly discouraged, but there are just some instances with our current infrastructure that it's like, gosh, it's hard to come up with a better, reasonable solution. The other piece, though, with this is also making that same level of access available for our after-school read program, because currently, we have parents coming to the vestibule, they're calling a number, staff are coming over to the door or walking kids to the door. We want the same kind of thing, to be able to buzz for parents that are picking up kids, and then whoever's staffing the after-school program can then buzz them in so that they can come and pick up their children. So it's just creating another additional buffer and level of security. It's not our traditional school day, but we do still have elementary kids and daycare kids in the building at that time. So we would like to keep that as secure as possible.
That button will only be ran in the gym, or does it get overridden by the office of the school day, so we don't have the gym buzzing people in a side door that don't have to go through the main office?
So the way that it was configured is it would just go to the gym, but it would be up to any adult, like there shouldn't be any, everything should go to the main
Right.
office during the day.
So there isn't, I mean, you know,
Yep.
right.
And there's a-
You know, there's a way to override it to send everything to the office, and then once your school day is ended or something, that you can remotely, I mean, I'm sure the technology's out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's already a key fob access reader at that door, so any of our staff, they can already go in and out of that door. It would just be a visitor would have to get buzzed in by somebody that was at that monitor. Any questions on that one?
Do we have a camera right there just in case someone gets buzzed in, so that would.
Yes, we do. Right there in that vestibule and in the hallway right outside the art room. And outside the door as well. Yeah, we're very well covered in that area.
Can we get reimbursed from the state of Iowa or
Correct.
Center State?
Nope, fully reimbursed.
So is there a motion for the first one? For the discussion on them, or you wanna go through all three?
Yeah, we can just go through all three. It's all connected. So the next one is a visitor management system. This is for monitoring people that are coming into our building. So what we'd like to do is put one over here in the one over here in the high school, one in the elementary. So this would be visitors that come in. It would be inside that secure vestibule, and visitors would have to scan their ID. So they come in. There's like a kiosk. They have to have a driver's license or an identification card, and they'll put that in. It'll read it. What it does is it scans across a national database. It would prohibit any like sex offenders or anybody. We can also flag it to like if someone was prohibited from the school. Let's say there's a threat made or something like that. We could place someone's name into that system, and it would kind of red light them. So once they put their ID in, it says if there's any concerns that are flagged, then it notifies them that they don't get access. There's also going to be the ability to communicate with an individual from the office to that spot. So like right now, like over here, Marcia, somebody comes to the door, Marcia just buzzes them in. They still need access to get, out that next door that's granted by Marcia. But it creates another buffer for those people that are kind of in the front lines for, who are they opening the door to? And so that would be required for any, non-school staff or students that are coming in through those main doors outside of the main entry times. There would have to be conversations, like we've talked with other schools who use the system exactly like this, and they've done a number of different things on nights like, music concert night. It just becomes a question of how big of a nightmare do we want to make this. Some schools have kind of done like a pre-approval list where they know all the parents that have already like scanned in, and then they just stand at the door and like, oh, yep, you're good, yep, go ahead, you're good, go ahead. Oh, grandma, I didn't know you were coming, you've never been here before. All right, please go over to that kiosk. And then some other schools have just said like, we just kind of, landed on the fact that it's kind of a nightmare. So we just use it during the school day and then allow guests in, in the evenings. So that's the visitor management system.
So that'll be before they get buzzed into the office.
Correct. Yep, in both buildings. Yep. And then the next one is
And that $3,800 is for both of them. That's per unit.
That's per unit. Correct. Yep. And then the last one here, security camera equipment. This recommendation is to replace all the security cameras in both buildings. What we've done is as we've built our security camera system, added, like at the elementary, a substantial number were installed initially, but then we add 5 here, add a dozen there, and what we have in both buildings is just kind of some scattered quality of imaging. And for someone that has to pull cameras to do an investigation or look into some matter, it's pretty spotty. You kind of roll the dice on the kind of quality that you're going to get. And so what this does is this significantly upgrades. We have a lot of like 1 megapixel cameras in the school, and what this does is this brings up the quality of every camera in both of our schools. It helps replace every camera that we have over here, and then the bid for the elementary is a little bit larger because we have some needs that we want to put some cameras in some additional places around the elementary school. But I think it's 64 cameras over in this building and like 94 or somewhere in that ballpark over in the elementary. Along with the cameras, it's also replacing the hard drive that stores all the camera footage. So we'll be able to save our camera security footage for over a month or beyond. But when you upgrade the quality of imaging, you also have to upgrade the capacity for the digital storage, and that's what this system provides. So this would be installed by our technology director. He has assured me that he's more than capable because a majority of all of it is just taking existing cameras off the wall and hooking up the wires, doing a new one. So he wasn't concerned about his ability to do that at all. So that's the recommendation there. Any questions on the security camera stuff?
We'll go back to 12 and is there a motion to approve the electronic door access system upgrades?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Properly moved by Walt, second by Dina to approve the electronic door access system for the amount of $4,240. Is there any discussion?
I think it should be revisited because I don't like it solely being in the gym.
If we don't approve it this month, we have to have this approved by the end of this calendar year to access the safety and security money through the state. So if we waive it tonight, then we'll just have to pick up whatever costs are associated with that.
Is your concern with having anybody access it?
Well, yeah, if it's gonna be on a gym wall, you got kids there, you got balls hitting it, you've got people buzzing people in during games, they could be bypassing whatever. I just don't think it's in a secure enough location.
Or how do we get around that to secure it?
But it's much safer than propping open the door.
And that's kind of where I'm at. Our security team over there had a lot of conversation about it, and it's
You
hard.
had thoughts, Chad, or?
Yeah, I'm not really sure where it's going to be put at, so I don't think basketball or volleyballs would hit it. I think they would mount it in a spot where that wouldn't happen. And maybe just make it clear to coaching staff that they're the ones authorized to buzz in and
That's a 20-foot hallway, a coach can't stick his head out the door.
It's funded by the state of Iowa, so.
Right.
If they're gonna fund it, I'm thinking it's one less security issue. It could be better. I get what you mean, Joe, but.
Well, it's something you can still ask whoever's installing it or
Correct.
company,
That's
hey,
what
this is our concern.
Can we
How do
disable it from
alleviate
this
that?
hour to that hour?
There's gotta be some way.
Am I allowed to talk on it? I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm not. I think what I recall when we originally had that conversation was I've gone through the gamut multiple times and talked to people where they'll prop it open not ill will, but then sometimes it'll be left propped open during practices and stuff, and I'll constantly talk to coaches like, hey, if you can close that. So I think our original combo was kind of on that wall in the back corner, not the back corner, but when you first enter that door, so that coaches could be in there supervising if kids are shooting around or hitting volleyballs, and then instead of propping the door, they could buzz people in rather than having an open door for 45 minutes. I don't know if that's the best perfect solution, but that's what I recall the original conversation, so for what it's worth.
It'd be nice to know if there's some kind of override system or something.
Maybe it's the key card system, maybe you have to scan your key card or whatever before you get access to it or something. We can find more about that before it's.
Or you put a lockbox over top of the thing, so the coach can open it during practice and have the lockbox come open, so you can let them in. During the game, you just lock it, or any other time of the day during the school day, and nobody can access it.
That is a great idea.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, that's just what I remember we had talked about, but yeah, I don't know that we talked through every end of that like you mentioned,
Yeah.
so.
that would be an inexpensive solution. Yeah, I'd be perfectly fine exploring that part. We can do that on our own. Yep, yeah, correct. Yeah, if it's not working and we think it's posing a great safety hazard, we're not out any money, but we are if we don't proceed. We decide that we want it. Joe, are you more comfortable with that kind of solution?
Yeah. Sure.
Is there a motion?
Walt made it.
Walt made it, but
I
I second.
seconded it.
Properly by Walt, seconded by Dana, to approve the purchase of electronic door system. Any more discussion? Proceed to vote. Roll call.
Walt,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Joe,
Yeah.
Dylan,
Yes.
Craig.
Yes. Approve purchase of visitor management system, amount of $38,750 per unit, putting in 2.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the visitor management system.
Second.
Been properly moved by Joe, second by Dylan, to approve the visitor management system. Any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve purchase of security camera equipment.
Make a motion to approve the purchase of security camera equipment.
Second.
Properly moved by Dylan, second by Joe, to approve the purchase of security camera equipment as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Second and final reading, board policy 503.8 and 605.3, E4, E5.
So 50308 is just a policy for responding to threats in schools. It's a model policy based on recommendations from the Department of Education. 60503, E4, and E5 are just two additional forms that weren't previously included in our policy packet that were forms that can be filled out for reviewing library or instructional materials.
Any comment from the public? 2 minutes. Seeing none, any discussion by the board? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Principal reports.
That's fine, I'll go for it. All right, so good news is Brooke hit on a couple, or we've already hit on a couple of things I had put down for this meeting, so that'll shorten it up a little bit. But I just kind of went chronologically this month on some of the key things going on in the elementary. So the first thing I got listed for tonight is the all staff core values activity. Really, I've been talking to you guys about this since I started here. I had talked at the beginning of the year on staff meeting one-to-one and the theme coming out like interacting with each other. I think it might have been September, October, we had talked about a survey that I had sent out, kind of like where that staff culture was breaking down, if it was staff to staff, staff to student, student to student, and overwhelmingly it came back staff to staff conflict with admin to staff number 2. So I think like 96% of respondents said staff to staff at that time. I think it was like 42 or 46% that said admin to staff. So the next step we took is towards the end of November, we did an all-staff core values activity when it fit into our Wednesday PD. We have 4 core values that were laid out, which are relationships and respect, inclusion prevails, exceptional effort, and then details matter. Those are things that we had talked about as a staff, but never really dove into and defined, like, what does this mean? What does this look like? If that makes sense. So what we did in that activity was group staff members, I think it's groups of 3 if I remember correctly. We gave those 4 core values and basically defined those collectively. So everyone had a voice to say, what does relationships and respect look like, sound like, examples, non-examples in our building. Just because as an admin, oftentimes I'll have multiple people come to me with concerns and conflicts in other areas, if that makes sense. So we got feedback from everyone. And then at our December 5th Lighthouse team meeting, I distributed all staff responses on all those papers. And to be clear, everybody had the opportunity to do that. So teachers, associates were invited, any custodians, anybody that interacted in the building was invited to partake in that activity. But in our Lighthouse team meeting on December 5th, I distributed all those responses out to our Lighthouse team members, and we went one by one, just give feedback that you heard from your staff responses. In that meeting, we basically put pretty much everything down, all of the themes. We came back the next week, so I think that was December 12th. We started narrowing those in on, rather than having 10 different responses to what does relationships and respect look like, kind of narrowing in what is the theme that we're getting for that core value. So we did that last week. We didn't get all the way done. We came to pretty good consensus on 3 of the 4, and then 1 of the 4, I wouldn't say we were completely off, but we didn't have a perfect fit consensus. So we're gonna come back and finish that one up tomorrow. And then talk about rolling that out to all staff and talking about what are the general themes we got back. We're gonna talk about what's the best way and the right time to do that coming out of the winter break. So that was kind of the first update, just because that's something that we've talked about kind of continually throughout the course of the year, kind of steps that we've taken on some of those things. So. Next thing I had listed was Jackson County Conservation presenters. This is something pretty cool. We actually have our second wave, I believe, for the year. They came earlier in the year, and then Thursday, November 21st, 2 presenters will be coming in for like 30 to 40 minute presentations across all grade levels. So I basically sent to teachers. Jess Wagner from Jackson County Conservation reached out about it. And then we sent out to teachers some proposed times to see what would fit best into their schedule. So we worked that out together, as well as then teachers could work with Jess on what topics kids wanted to learn about. So some examples: kindergarten settled on turkeys, 1st grade snakes, 2nd grade animal groups, 3rd grade animal life cycles, 4th grade is getting a oh deer presentation, 5th grade deadly lynx, and then 6th grade skulls. So we did set up 3 dates throughout the course of the year for them to come in to do those roughly 30 to 40 minute presentations. I think early January and then late February, early March, something like that were the 2nd and 3rd times. But long story short, I also worked with Jess on a cool opportunity I thought I'd tell you about. They are going to come in one additional time for, it was offered kindergarten through 2nd. We ended up settling 1st and 2nd because kindergarten felt it was a little over their students' head. But once every 3 years, NASA has some moon rocks that they loan out to the conservation. So that happened to fall on this year. So 1st and 2nd grade is also going to get a cool little moon rock presentation from Jackson County Conservation team. So kind of cool. NAMI presentations Brooke already talked about, so I'm going to skip that one. Next thing I had listed was our SIAC meeting. Mr. Fee had asked us to have 2 SIAC meetings per year. Our first one for the year was on November 25th. We got the committee together, kind of went through the legislative purpose document following criteria for that meeting. We pretty much went over everything from literacy data and achievement, math data and achievement, science, leader and me data, bullying and harassment efforts. And then we also covered some other goal areas that Patty was kind enough to share with me some of the things they had done in the past. So we went through the whole gamut of that meeting, what it entailed. A big key part of that obviously is parental input. A major emphasis from the families after going through pretty much a comprehensive look at our building was communication. That's what it came down to, regardless of communication on academics, communication on upcoming activities. So what I wanted to share with you on that was, here are the key points that families in that SIAC committee came out of wanting to hear, was celebrating our wins and breaking down the why behind it. On that note, we talked a little bit about, in the previous board meeting, we talked through our Iowa assessment scores and some of the growth. And they talked about, hey, we need to be celebrated talking about that stuff. We don't hear that enough. So that's where that came from. They talked about pushing Facebook page and social media messages more, publishing in the newspaper more. They threw out an idea of like high school students writing articles, which wouldn't really be as much the elementary level. That was part of the conversation. And then they talked about just if we want the community being involved more, we have to communicate that better, more clearly, more often, etc. So one of the action steps, kind of where I was left, was, okay, Mr. Daniels, like, here's our feedback. What's the next step with that? And that kind of led us into, well, hey, something that's going to be coming out is our Apogee rooms. That was something that we're working towards, and that sounds like some of a solution of potentially, posting some of those good things, exploring those avenues to get that out to everyone, as well as that direct communication. So that was just kind of a quick update on that. Mr. Cruz, are you gonna talk about Skyrocket overview at all?
Go for it.
All right.
I can't.
I can do it quick. Just real quick, I had put on your all-staff Skyrocket overview. You guys probably already know that Andrew Delwood and then the high school and us all got together out here in the Commons. I think that was December 4th. And then the owner or the founder of Skyrocket, our coaching model, I was really appreciative of him explaining the why behind that. I think from an administrative point, I think it connected with a lot of our staff on some of the things that are going on, like why it's happening. And then I also appreciated that he mentioned sometimes from an admin perspective, it's tough to communicate, hey, this is difficult on our end of delivering and making sure it's really good for you and meaningful. So he kind of gave a prop to that for us. That felt good for me to help provide some of that clarity that might have been missing at times. So something I thought I'd highlight and you can elaborate on if you want. So. And then following that training, kind of on that Apogee rooms, staff got a full day of PD that day, just because it was when Jeff was available with, I think his wife had some health things or his daughter. So anyway, staff stayed an extra hour that night. We did go over a PD with a trainer from Apogee Rooms of kind of getting set up the basis of their rooms platform to communicate with people. Some of the feedback I think that I heard in that meeting was, here we can have further ongoing support. Like, here was a great 1 hour quick training, but what's this continual as I'm learning something new, like what's that support gonna look like? So I've worked with Jeff in the elementary specifically. When we come back, I can't remember if it's January 7th or 8th, whatever that Wednesday is, but he said, hey, I'll certainly stay in from 2:45 to 3:30, start helping fumble with teachers, like, hey, what help do you need? What troubleshooting do we need? Just to try to get that going as well as we can when acknowledging staff is engaging in something new, but just to let them know, like, we are here to support you and try to keep this going in the right direction as easily as we can for you. So, and then a couple celebrations here to end. We had our winter concerts on December 9th and 10th. I had a lot of positive feedback from community members and appreciation on those. So just a shout out to our music team for those. And then the last one is about this coming Friday with the early out day. We have our holiday parties coming up. So it's kind of nice to have a short day where kind of what I told staff was take that day to connect with your kids, have a fun little holiday party, do something to engage before the break. Because I do think on all realms, sometimes we get caught up in all the busyness and things we have to achieve. And an early out day to connect with kids before a little break is good for everyone. And then a cool little shout out on that. One of you guys, if you've been in our building, you may have seen the Riverhawk wall. I'm trying to remember what we had a title that I walk by every day. But we have the big Riverhawk where we shout out, soaring Riverhawks, thank you. And that was something Brittany Lawson came up with and brought to my idea as culture team lead. And every time kids do something awesome that meets the leader in the habits, teachers can write out a little slip for them. It's cool seeing the smiles on their faces when they tap them up. And one of the things that comes from that, all those positive notes get pulled when we have a Riverhawk rally once a month. They get put into a little drawing board, and then kids get to come up and they say spin the wheel into the mic, and then we have this wheel that we post on the projector. We push it and it spins and they win something. And a little third grader, Jameson Bohannon, won a free pizza party on his spin, and he was jumping out of his shoes. Right away the next morning he met me and he said, hey, can we do that on the 20th before we go to break? And I said, I think that'd be great, man. So they get a cool little pizza party in Mrs. Mickelson's class while they connect with each other on that day. So it's kind of my cool little celebration to kick us into break. So any questions for me or anything?
I'm going to say thank you to you because the elementary school for Red Ribbon Week raised $700 and donated at the Riverhawk Rally to the Iowa Hurricane Relief Group that I'm working with, and that was really awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Brittany Lawson was a big part of that, getting that going.
She was.
Yeah, that was awesome. That stuff's on way down to North Carolina right now. Yep.
All right, junior high school.
Brandon, before you start, Craig, on that reading of board policies, nobody made a motion. You just voted. You made a motion on person type, or did you have something written down?
I had to be in all. Oh, we can read it.
Oh, no, if you have somebody, that's fine, I just
No,
didn't
just
catch it.
go ahead. Is there a motion to second and final reading?
I'll make a motion to approve final reading of the board policy
503,
50605, that one.
Properly by Joe, second by Dana to approve board policy, second reading, and final reading of board policy 503.8 and 605.3, E4 and E5. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, junior high school. Performing arts band and vocal concert was this last Sunday. They got to use the shells for the risers for the first time, so it was nice to see those get put up and in use. Our band and choir directors are both currently at the Midwest Clinic in Chicago getting 3 days of professional development. I got some pictures today of them sitting in a band for small schools, kind of talking there, so it's a good opportunity for them. Ms. Deemer, our vocal director, also has some students that have gotten selected for honors events at University of Dubuque and Meister Singers at Wartburg, so those are coming up. Our ag department, fruit sales are being delivered this week. They've also done some small trips around at some local farms to observe. Butchering chickens was one of them last week that Mr. Reed took them to, but I know they've been out to a couple other farms also. Ms. Folt's going to start vet science in the beginning of January, so next term, so it'll be the first time that class gets taught to our kids. Our class just wanted to thank Ms. Larson for all her help with all the winter decorating around the school. She kind of takes the lead and takes a lot of pride in that, so just giving her a shout out there, and then Ms. Keller and Ms. Lawrence for their work with student council also. Athletics, junior high girls basketball season finished up last week. 7th graders finished the season 0-10. 8th graders finished the season 5-5. Junior high boys start after break, so their official practices will start right when we come back. JV girls basketball has shown some really good improvements the last couple weeks. JV boys has been impressive in some of their wins, and they've had a couple really close losses as well, but they're playing well. Varsity boys played really a tough Lisbon team last night to a really tight game. They're 2-2 in the conference, 2-4 overall right now. Varsity girls have picked up 3 wins in a row. They're 3-1 in conference and 3-3 overall. And we host Prince of Peace on Friday. This Friday is also the end of our first semester. The kids have been doing finals this week. Our high school students, they're not required for the junior high, but just the high schools. They've done 2 periods a day. And then scattered it out through the last 4 days. So tomorrow will be their last day of that. We've done that, set it up that way so they don't get overloaded and end up with 4 finals a day and back-to-back days. So this is the second semester now that that's been a requirement that they have to give a final in their class. There's lots of different fundraisers that have been going on by a lot of the different classes. If you've been to any ball games around, you get hit up for buying raffle tickets to beats. I saw they're selling apples at games, which is I thought was a pretty cool little idea that I've never seen before either. But there's lots of them going on right now. District offices in our building are going to be, should hopefully be moved on Friday. There's one of the big flip is going to happen there too, with things going out to that HV building. Mr. Borman's health class then will go into where their current district offices are in there. So a few things will get flipped around then. So thanks to Jeff and to Rick for taking care of all those things. Teacher actions, next semester we're going to continue professional developments in our data studies, ISS, prep, and then we've been continuing our ruthless equity book study with our staff. That's been a fun experience, which is really good conversations with our staff members there. We're also going to start looking at a vertical alignment of our teaching standards within every class period. So there's a subject area, further identifying the gaps that we're seeing based on what has been taught and what hasn't been taught, what's just didn't get to in the past, so we can fill those holes and make sure we know exactly where everything's being covered all the way up. So we'll start with 7th grade, process it through senior year, and make sure we have all those things locked down. Our SWIT team leads discussions on course failures, and again, like I talked about, I'd like that deeper dive into why they're failing things. We don't have a drastic problem with that, but we do have a little bit higher level because of the requirements that are going out and the standards that we're holding them to. Piggybacking off of Austin's skyrocket stuff, I thought it was really a neat experience for all of our staff to be involved with Delwood and Andrew, and just to have 80+ teachers in the building at the same time, hearing the same thing, doing the same activities. It's pretty impactful for there, going against every other time that we're in here. You know, we're talking 18 to 22 people in here, but to have that many people in the same rooms is a rewarding experience for all of them as well. Our master schedule for 25-26 we'll start working on beginning of January here. So we'll be talking to kids about course selections and offerings coming up in the end of February, beginning of March. So again, the goal is to have all that stuff done by the time the kids walk out the door, so they know their schedule for the following year. Policy changes and additions, I gave you a little heads up about something coming with overlaps between economics class, personal finance, and school work readiness. Not ready to have that formal presentation for you yet, but that still is coming. Talked about the early grads and prom ready. The only other one that had come up, I had another group of students present to me about seniors in their second semester who have taken online classes, and typically the first quarter, so first and third quarters, if they're taking an online class, they work in the library, work on that, so they have to stay there. It varies between a couple of kids to 12 kids in the library hanging out, having to do their online coursework. If they're getting a C or better at the end of the quarter, then they can do their work at home and they don't have to report to class in the library. Their proposal was seniors in the second half of their senior year, if they've never had a problem failing anything in the online classwork, if they can start third quarter by doing their work at home right away, because they have proven history of being able to be successful there. So again, I told them I was going to bring that for any feedback that you guys could give. I think that was another solid proposal. I think we have some buffers there from, you know, if they have failed the class before or they've gotten under a C before, that is something that they don't get to qualify for that. But if they've had A's or B's all the way through now for 3 semesters in a row, I would be in favor of that. But I said I was going to bring that up to you guys too and just get opinions back from you before I would move that forward. Again, that has not been a formal policy thing. It's just been this is how it's gone in the past kind of thing. So I guess any feedback on that? Otherwise, that's or questions about anything else.
Graduation, have you sat down with the seniors to see what they want and all that yet?
To see what they want as far as...
If they're doing it outside, inside?
So last year we decided that it's going to be inside all the time in the gym, so they're planning, the dates are already set at the beginning of the year with a calendar, so we eliminate all of that, of weather being an issue or not an issue. And we obviously can have the reception piece outside if it's nicer, get people out, but we decided and locked in the date right away so everybody could plan.
For seniors that are graduating, we usually put something in paper. Do we do that now? Or are we gonna wait until?
It is clear there's 10.
Okay.
There's 4 additional ones, but there is 10 total
Okay.
this year. We usually put something in the paper, is that what you said?
Yeah, on each student profile or that we started.
I feel like we usually do it at the end of the year if we.
But I mean, these are graduating now, but.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they were in the past, I'll check on that, but I think in the past they were included at the end of the year since they actually walk at the end of the year.
As long as they include it, so I want to.
Yes, yep, yeah, they'll still be listed as they're part of that senior class. They just finished all their requirements here and it should move on from that. We'll make sure that
They're
they're
diploma at that time.
Yep.
Superintendent?
All right, so first just wanted to share an update on some additional security equipment that we've been exploring. I just had Walt pass down, hopefully everybody got one of these little small packets. I want to thank Chief Gruber for his continued leadership and support in helping to make our schools as safe as possible. We have been working with a company. I think in our last meeting, we were able to share just some of the Zoom meetings and information that they're learning, some general pricing that we'd be looking at. But what we're kind of looking at right now is kind of next generation metal detectors. As we've explained to you in the past, it's next level because of the number of people that you can move through in a shorter amount of time. You've probably all gone through them if you've gone to a big sporting event or a concert or something like that. Even a lot of hospitals are installing these, and it's growing more and more. Oftentimes you can walk through them and you won't even notice it. So the unit kind of looks like the system that's pictured there on the sheet. What I'm going to show you are just a couple small things just to kind of highlight how this works and what it looks like. So excuse the actor that we have here. I should have done like Mr. Cruzy if I would have been thinking, but or Chief Gruber over there. So what you're looking at, and let me blow this up larger. So they were just out yesterday. Chief Gruber helped line this up probably about 2 weeks ago, and they came out and they brought the equipment out for us to demonstrate. So this is right in the entrance of our junior high and high school. So what you see is it's pretty basic when it comes down to it. There's three main parts. I don't know if I can zoom. No, it doesn't look like it. So if you see my cursor, there's a standing unit right here. Yeah, if you don't mind, it'd be easier. Like there's some glare or something. So there's this unit over here on the right, and then there's another adjacent unit on the other side. And basically all you gotta do is just walk through it. There's a rubber mat. There's nothing real, technological about that. It just hides the wires that connect these two units. And then the third main piece is this little stand here. The stand is basically like a fancy iPad on a pedestal. So what you do is you pass your visitors through this little system. You can move multiple people through at one time, so it's not like an old school metal detector, like, all right, next, one at a time, that kind of thing. You can essentially pass right through it just like you normally would walking through the doors of the school. So when you walk through, it's going to scan. You don't even know it's scanning, but you're going to want to have someone standing like near that little iPad area, and somebody that's looking at the lights here. So if they notice a metal object that could be a potential threat, then that is kind of what we're looking for. Before I show you that, so what I have, they brought a little demo weapon. So what this is kind of like a replica gun. Because what that unit is scanning for is dense metal, especially things with like a cylindrical shape. So there's artificial intelligence that they use to scan for things, and the technology is constantly improving. But what you're going to see if I go back here, as I walk through, I have that in my waistband. So real quick, I walk through, I get red lighted. So the red light goes off, so then whoever's standing there kind of monitoring it, they then go to that little iPad looking thing. What they're going to see, and I'll zoom in here a little bit. So what it does is not only does it detect that something set it off, but it also kind of gives you a three-dimensional location of where the object is. So if I go through, if I've got something in my sock or around my waistband or maybe something like in my back or in a backpack, it's going to kind of isolate where the potential threat was detected. And so what that does is that allows you to just move a whole bunch of people through, through. Oh, flagged. Hey, could you step over to the side here? Like, do you have anything? Like, it's showing here on my screen, you've got something, around your waistband area. Like, do you have something in there? Like, and then the individual, oh yeah, I do. I've got, my cell phone might have set off. All right, let's try it again, pass back through. And so it's just looking for anything that could pose a potential threat. And this little digital screen that you saw a moment ago, it keeps track of all the analytics. Mr. Cruz, if you want to flip the light back on, that was just kind of a basic. I wanted to see like how quickly you can move through it, and then also just the technology that kind of isolates where the potential threat might be. And then, as you know, we also have like a wand, so if they're like, I don't have anything, well, then we have a little metal detecting wand, like, okay, well, this is set it off here, so either you can like show us what's in your pocket or go into the office and, we'll have your parent come in to help us kind of figure out what's going on. So that's kind of the basic premise, trying to prevent people from coming to the school with anything that could be a potential threat, primarily looking for weapons like guns or a larger knife or something of that nature.
What do you do if a permit to carry person comes in? Like, this is something you'd use for ball games? Like, I don't know how that works. If you have a permit to carry, you can carry to the school, can't you? Do you have a permit?
No, I don't think so.
No, you cannot.
Okay, I thought you
Chad's shaking his head. No. So that's just kind of gives you a snapshot of what it is. Chad, I've done enough talking tonight. Do you mind just sharing, what did we learn? What is the appeal? What concerns
Well, I think
you have?
the biggest thing is it's a deterrent. Is it perfect? I think it's as perfect as we can get, with the technology. Use the artificial intelligence to measure with these cameras that are installed, shape and density of objects that could be a threat. There's different ways, there's different sensitivity levels that you can turn it up to. You can, obviously that might grab a few more things, that might have a few more people be asked to step aside, but they have a general area where, a setting where they would keep it at or where we keep it at. They are becoming more popular with schools and hospitals, especially like major venues like United Center, Wrigley Field. They're probably everywhere, and you might not even notice them. It's a portable unit, can be moved.
Do they make a more stationary fixed unit that we wouldn't have to move around, or anything that could be ran from the screen in the office or something like that? Not as bulky and gaudy looking?
So that's kind of, I think, the makeup of the equipment. They can fix it to concrete or any flooring surface. So they showed us an area where you pop back some of the plastic or whatnot, and you can bolt it into the ground to stabilize it. They were telling us, like, they're weatherproof as well. You can put them outside, and it was, that's great, protect from snow, but a kid that wants to vandalize or something like that, like, it's a pretty expensive piece of equipment, so we were a little reluctant to, go that far, while we saw the appeal of trying to catch them before they even get in the building. But the other piece that we learned, we kind of talked like, can we put it in the vestibule so we catch kids even before they come in or even before they might get buzzed in to Marcia's office, and it needs a 3-foot distance away from any metal, so like those aluminum doors would mess with the accuracy of the detection.
Whose role would it be to watch the?
Yep, so when we did the Zoom with them originally, we said, hey, we need you to understand, like, we're a small school district, like, Chief Gruber's our SRO, but he's not, like, stationed here 100% of the time. We don't have him here. We don't have a strong, like, security team that's monitoring things, during the school day. They said, oh, no, like, we work with a lot of small schools, and they said most schools, their principal or their, other school personnel will stand at the door and greet kids when they're coming in. And we're like, oh, yeah, like, very true. Like, we have that every day when people are coming and going. We have staff up there. So there would be some staff that are already employed that we would have to assign that role. Like, hey, we want to make sure we get a core group of people trained that stand here, that because they also share. It's also a part of a positive experience for people. Like just a greeting. Having somebody there. Hey, good morning. If something does get caught, and they said you want to have 2 people there. So if something gets caught, then you can. Hey, step over here and talk to Mr. Irwin real quick. While Mr. Cruzy's continue to stand there and just keep an eye and say good morning to people. So that was kind of what they explained to us, and that's how it would probably look in practice for us. The cost of the unit is, we'd have to negotiate with them and get multiple bids and such, but we're talking probably about $25,000 a year. You could purchase it outright or you could lease it, but regardless of how you flip it, they said after about 4 years, the technology is improving so much and the equipment gets outdated pretty quickly that you'd probably want to be looking to replace it with something as sensitive as security equipment. You don't want to be going on like, oh, can we push it another year to get our money's worth? We want to have the best technology in something like this. In your packet here, if you flip to the second page, this is other newer technology that came out. This is similar to kind of like what you see at an airport where you're running a bag or something through the device. So it allows you to just get more people through more quickly, especially if you're trying to monitor kids with like Chromebook bags, or like you can see here in the image, I ran through with an instrument, and the density of the metal and the instrument and the shape did trigger it. So like the instrument set it off. I ran through with a Chromebook. When we turned up the like how detailed it was looking, it did set off when it went through, or when I went through the Chromebook. So they just said that there are advantages to, if you have a Chromebook or a big backpack, to just separate it off of your person, run it through there as you walk through, because then it just helps you isolate where a potential threat might be. But that little piece of equipment is going to run you about $15,000 more per year, roughly.
Their bag policy sounds cheaper.
Yeah, doesn't it?
And it would probably detect vapes too?
So they said this device that they brought yesterday was like their older model, and they said it doesn't. They said if you turn up the sensitivity on the newer device, Chad, did I understand it correctly, that they do believe that it...
Because there's an additional camera on there, so it gets more of a triangulation on the body, so.
And they said the new update in beginning of 25 here had something else specified towards that also. Detect vape or vape.
We happened, they showed up about, 11:30 yesterday, and so we had a cafeteria full of high school students. Within the first 5 minutes, there was all kinds of buzz. What is that? What are they doing? What's going on? And then we had one kid walk up, then another. I think I had 4 questions in the first 10 minutes. Does it detect vapes? So like, all right, mental note. Let's try to get the best technology we can. Just keep them out of the school. One thing though they recommended, that's why I'm kind of holding the instrument out. They said, if it is sensitive to your Chromebooks, and they said it's more sensitive to some than others, depending on the kind of hinge and whatnot. But they said if it's setting off a lot of inaccurate readings, they just said tell kids to pull their Chromebook out and just hold it out. So when they walk through there, you just walk through like this, and then if it does detect it, it isolates and it'll show like, oh, it's just the Chromebook. There's nothing on their body that would be setting that off. So that was another way to get by without, the additional $15,000 piece of equipment. It was pretty timely, and they're scheduled to come out here because there was a school shooting, I think, just the day before in Wisconsin. And again, it just highlights that, there's no specific demographic that can be targeted in those incidents. It can be a small school, it can be a private school, it can be a public school. So to just have the mindset it won't happen here. Is $25,000 a lot? Yeah, but I also think it sends a pretty big message in our district's willingness to invest in the safety of not just our students, but our staff also. It's a protection for everybody that comes in and out of the school. And if you think about the cost of, trying to clean up a tragic incident, that's a drop in a bucket as far as that annual cost. There have to be a lot more conversations. We just wanted to kind of educate you here tonight. We would have to be talking more about, is this something we do in both buildings, or is it just a high school building thing? So those are all things we want to grapple with and discuss more. But if you had any concerns, I wanted to just get those surfaced tonight. But I wouldn't be opposed to having Chief Groover and Jeff Rabb help reach out to some different companies and just say, hey, quote us on what's the best price we could get to make a more educated decision sooner than later? What questions do you have on that?
Personally, I think extra security is a great thing. I have had people say they don't think it's always good for the kids to feel that they're coming into a place where they could look their penalty checker. I don't have a response to that. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I would think it would be worth it.
Security check every day, go to work.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the world we live in now,
Yeah.
you know?
I definitely think it's worth diving deeper into, for sure. Having conversations around it.
So if we install however many wherever, there will be one entrance, basketball games and all that stuff.
Yeah, so they were heading down to Moline schools after they were leaving us, and we just asked them like, hey, because I think they were already using them. Officer Groover, is that what you recall?
Yeah.
And they were looking to install more, and they said they do use them for their basketball games, but then it becomes a management issue. I said, well, we have a hard time just getting a ticket taker to sit at the door and collect money. So they would take additional personnel that are standing there, for everybody that comes in. So they said it was just kind of school choice if you just use it during operating hours or if you do expand it to larger events. I saw Jen nodding her head over there like she volunteered to work that. So.
I currently live in I'm sorry, can I talk?
Probably not, but sorry.
I currently live in concession stand, so I'm not.
No, dang it. Okay, so I heard there's interest, get more information, and let's continue to explore. Jumping down, electric bus concerns. So concerns are mainly on the side of the company. We made a decision to go with Lion Electric. It's a company out of Quebec. Well, a few weeks ago, I get a message from Amber Sheremy, and she says, Chris, I don't have good news for you. Like, what is it? It's the electric buses. I'm having trouble getting service technicians out to respond to repairs. And it's because I'm being told that they just did a huge round of layoffs. So the company since learned to employ about 700 people, and in the last month they laid off over half of their workforce nationwide and in Quebec and Canada, that area. I looked into it further. Back in the third quarter of their fiscal year, they reported a net loss of $34 million. I keep kind of checking back and looking into things, and they're currently trying to avoid bankruptcy. They're trying to sell the company to get out of some of the debt that they're having trouble following through with. But it's impacting our ability to get the service that we need. We had 2 buses up in Andrew that had issues. The air brake system from Amber's educated me a whole bunch on different parts of buses and mechanical problems, but the electric buses have an air brake system that's different than a traditional bus. When you're done driving the bus, you need to manually pull a little valve to expel all the air out of the compressor. And on a traditional bus, there's also a heater, I'm told, that dries up any moisture that can condense inside of that unit. Well, what was happening to these buses is during the drive, so not even while it was sitting, during the drive, moisture was getting into the compressor, and then it was freezing. So this was on some of the colder days we've had in the last month. And then it was freezing, and then it was burning out the blower on the little motor, and then disabling the bus. So it's not like you're driving and then the brakes go out, you have no brakes. The system senses it and then shuts down operation of the bus because of the detected issue in the brake system. And so what Amber's explained to me is that she went, she wasn't thrilled about the response time, but she was getting people out in a week, 2 weeks prior to this. With the layoffs, they went from having, I think, I'll misquote it because it's been a couple weeks, but they went from having 9 technicians for a 4-state area to 2 technicians for a 9-state area. Just something silly like that. So getting somebody out to respond and report the issues it is a huge challenge. She reached out to some local folks. I asked her to talk with like Highway 64. They came out, took a look. They think that they can, provide some repair, but of course the part that is needed is not available for months on end. So just some major issues that if we can't, repair the buses, then it just raises a lot of red flags about how the heck are we supposed to rely on these to operate our fleet if we can't get reliable, technicians and support when issues do arise. So definitely not something that is looking very promising for the long run. As we knew when we went into it, it was a pretty low risk proposition. If we had to get more buses, we were going to be getting more buses anyway. The buses that we moved on from weren't buses that were highly operational or getting utilized anyway. So that's kind of where we stand. Just waiting to kind of see what Lion does and what they're able to provide. And if they're not able to meet our needs, then we're going to start kind of pushing back on, we don't need all these buses sitting in our lot if we can't use them. So there'll be a lot of questions that need to get answered from the federal government if things pan out the way that they're looking. The other pieces here, district office update, just beautiful work. You'll be amazed. If you want to get out there at any point in time, I'd love to show you the work that Rick and our team has done here. Just transformed that into a great office space for our district office location. We're just waiting on some of the technology, phone lines, data lines to get dropped, and as soon as they do, we're going to be pretty much fully operational out there. Next piece, Rick Sullivan, our head of facility and grounds here, has come to Adam and I on a couple of occasions just talking about needs. One of the things that he really sees a need for is some additional equipment over here. He was kind of recommending something in the department of like a small tractor. I'll kind of pass this down. This as an example. What he was saying would more than meet our needs. It's probably the smallest model that you'll see on this page here. The only difference would be have a cab just for all weather, but then also have a plow and a bucket. We have a large tractor that's over at the elementary most of the time. I'm trying to make sure that whatever we purchase, we have some equipment that meets all of our needs and that we maximize the equipment that we do have. And if we're not using something, then we move on, part ways, trade it in, whatever that might be. We just have some older equipment. Outside of that large tractor, we have a newer grasshopper, but the other piece of equipment that we have are kind of closer to the end of their life cycle. And in the past, like Rick just explained, that over here, our previous crew was like, he was told hopping up on like our curbs and trying to push some of the snow off on our sidewalks with a blade and a truck, and he just doesn't feel comfortable with that. It's not good for the equipment, it's not good for our walks, and so a piece of equipment like this would be used for snow removal and a lot of that maintenance, but also a lot of other uses on the grounds here. Also, he's been working hard to try to figure out how we can keep our ball fields over in Miles looking nicer. We just constantly have these weeds that just keep growing in, and he consulted with his former colleague that does a really nice job over at Northeast, and he said you just got to keep dragging it. He thinks that maybe the weight that we're able to put on there and for that pole just isn't quite enough. So a small tractor like this, he feels like he can get on the fields without leaving a lot of imprint and stuff. We definitely can't take our larger tractor out there because of the weight, but he feels like a smaller piece of equipment would definitely help in that department as well. We're talking probably a ballpark of about $40,000 for something like that. So I met with him again this morning, told him I was going to just kind of update you on conversations that we've been having. We'd really like to try to get some movement in our meeting in January, so I shared with him that I was going to invite, if if anybody on the board, had expertise or wanted to just get an extra eye on, what our current inventory is, what our needs are, and what this equipment might be able to do, I'd invite like a rep from the board to come sit down with Rick, Adam, and myself and just be a part of some of the conversations so that when we come back in January, we can feel pretty confident in whatever recommendation is coming forward. Any thoughts? Would anybody like to come in and just sit down and kind of...
I'd sit in on it.
Sounds good. You know something about tractors, that's the question.
Sat in a few.
All right.
Are you gonna get estimates from all the local companies?
We do, yeah. I actually have it all here. I told Rick that I wanted to just explore a little bit further. He's like, you're not gonna get it approved tonight? No, I wanted to do our due diligence. There's a lot of moving parts and
I think we
such.
have estimates from 6 different places that Rick got, so
How's it paid for? How do we?
it'd be paid for a couple or 1% dollars.
How old's our other equipment?
So we have a newer grasshopper that only has about 200 hours on it. We have an older one that's pushing 1,200 hours. We also have trucks, so that's kind of another part to the equation. We have, a maintenance truck over here and a maintenance truck over there. One of the trucks has a faulty transmission, just from pushing heavy loads and stuff in the past. Rick told me that, because I said, I can't make a recommendation tonight because I know we have transportation needs as well, and I need to sort out, our budget and make sure we have our needs covered. He said he felt like if we got something like this, it would take a big load off of, the truck that he currently uses, and he felt like he could get 4 more years out of our current maintenance truck, even with the crumbling transmission, if we had something else that he could move some of the slushier and heavier snow with.
When you're looking at your estimates, is there availability, so if we approve it 1 week, you'd have the following week?
That's what he said. He said he felt like he could get it a real quick turnaround on this equipment. Yep. You could probably talk to him more, Adam. Do you have more that you'd share, elaborate?
No, I think that's most of it. As far as the one Chris talked about, I did email the state just to confirm what I thought was the case, but I just wanted clarification because I never would have recommended it in the past, but like Suburbans, typically we bought all of our Suburbans with Pepler 1% dollars. One thing with now, if you remember when I was talking last month about our general fund and how one thing that we have going for us right now is the amount of cash we have sitting around, and interest rates are fairly good right now. So we're getting around $160,000 a year in interest, where just a few short years ago that was not even anywhere close to that. You are allowed to purchase Suburbans in our general fund, and that's something that you could look at as a board to kind of offset or use up some of that excess money in the short term and with no hit to the district in the future, where in the past it was never anything that would have been a recommendation for me, but right now I think it's at least something to consider and look at.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Where the transportation funds come from?
That's what, so like,
If we need another bus.
so same thing, like if it would be a bus, we'd probably do that out of Pepler 1% funds, but you can't buy buses out of the general fund too. It's board discretion.
I'm more concerned about the bus issue.
Yeah.
I mean, we need it, but
Correct.
I mean, bus issue to me is
Yeah,
a lot of concern.
yeah, right, and so like the buses, I would have to, with Amber, but we leased less buses than what we technically would have without the potential of trying this grant, so yes, it would be an increase, but like we haven't like went out and spent that money, so it's not like anything like, oh man, we gotta come up with a, gap of funding here and a couple of 1% budget to make that happen, so we're kind of like, let's see how this goes, and then do that, we might have to do something, so.
Amber's been reaching out to different bus suppliers and getting bids, just so that we're prepared if we need to do something there.
We're just getting into winter, so.
Yeah, right, and buses have one like everything else. I mean, a new bus not too long ago was like, it was like, oh man, buses are getting close to $100,000. Those same buses now are 150, 160. I mean, they went up a crazy amount of money in the last 3 years, so there's a lot of costs for a bus.
So a lot of lead time on
Yes.
availability of school buses.
Have we contacted where we get the grant through to let, or make them aware of all the issues?
No, I mean, not the federal government yet. We're waiting to get some answers and see how this shakes out, but.
What were the other school districts that did the same? They got the buses also? They have issues?
So I think, Andrew is having the issues primarily. Other districts in the state, I think we were the only ones that got them from line as far as we knew. In our research, I think up in Maine where they were operating, I think they're having some of the same issues, cold weather. The last piece you can disregard because Mr. Daniels and Mr. Cruzy hit on some of the professional learning and bringing all the teachers together and just getting high quality opportunities and collaborative opportunities for our staff. So that's all I have for you.
Public forum, we'll be allowed to speak for 2 minutes. We're not going to talk about personnel issues because we should be going into closed session if it's personnel, so you need to follow the proper chain there. So, Richard, do you want to go first?
I do. I have two critical concerns. First, with the board not approving Principal Brandon Cruzy to coach girls basketball paid volunteer, it appears he has been heavily involved with the team. He has attended practices, sat behind the bench during games, and entered the locker room during halftime. This raises serious questions about whether the administration is respecting and adhering to board decisions. Such disregard undermines the authority of this body and erodes public trust. Second, the most recent audit has revealed that 4 years the administration has failed to implement necessary changes required by law, state code, in segregation of duties and certified budget violating 24.9 Iowa Code, along with others. Furthermore, it seems there's a persistent failure to adhere to the law, enforce board policies, and ensure that handbook policies are adhered to. The board must take immediate steps to address these deficiencies as outlined in the audit and ensure the CSD align with state law and district policy. Regardless of a view of being minor, there is Iowa law that governs this and therefore makes us Iowa law non-compliant. Since this adds to the board failing to adhere to the law, board policies, and handbook enforcement, I am hoping during the holidays the board will contemplate enforcing their own decisions, complying with state requirements, and hold the administration accountable to policies. Fulfilling these obligations to this community is paramount. I won't call for your resignation today with the expectation things will change in 2025. Merry Christmas.
My time start now, or can I walk to the front and then it starts?
You can walk to the front.
Okay. Okay.
You're walking on a run.
Why are people allowed to come into a board meeting and make false accusations? This is unacceptable. The day in question of the search, one of my daughters was in that same bathroom and had the same search conducted. I'm only assuming that the same protocol was completed to every person on that day. In my daughter's instance, she was asked to come to the main office. She was in a room with a female school counselor and the principal. The search consisted of lifting the shirt up to just the waistband to make sure nothing was in it and then turning pockets inside out. This was not an intrusive search. No pat-downs or clothing removal happened. I received a phone call after it was conducted and I didn't see anything wrong with what had occurred. I personally spoke to another school and this is how they conducted it with a male principal and a female counselor. The mother of the school, of the girl that was searched, called me sometime after this occurred and told me that she was going to meet with school board members and was going to talk to them about the search. Why is our board meeting privately with people instead of following protocol and taking the next step with the concern, which would be the superintendent? I told her I had no complaints and neither did my daughter. There's no reason this has been dragged on so long and it has turned into. This issue needs to be put to rest and our board needs to take the lead on it. Living in this community for 21 years, looking at the school board members tonight, I have heard rumors about almost every single one of you, good or bad. But I do not believe anything unless I see proof and I can show it differently. Negative rumors specifically, I've heard negative rumors specifically about a current board member that used to be a coach for our district. But I dismissed this because I trusted our board members and the superintendent to look into this matter and handle it the way it should have. I would like you to investigate the October school board meeting. The agenda was presented to have the personal way before the public forum. Shockingly, there was a motion to move public forum in front of personnel, which weirdly enough was someone who wanted to speak on her feelings of a person being voted on for junior high girls basketball coach. There is proof, which I have, of a Facebook message going around prior to this meeting about false accusations saying that the board is asking anyone with information to come forward with more. While I didn't specifically see a board member say on this thread, I do believe there's a board member or more acting unethically and purposely trying to alter things behind closed doors. I believe there are board members that have their own agendas, and letting community members also have their own personal agendas to sway their actions and conduct. There are so many people in this community that have shown their support for our administration and how things are conducted. It is time for this stuff to end. So, thank you.
Board request. Just on the next board, we have to elect officers, and then you want to research student board member and bring to the board. Anyone else?
The only thing I wanted to bring up was, along the whole electric bus thing, looking into the possibility of looking at propane buses. I talked to one of the energy salespeople at the place I work, and they've done some research internally that shows that propane buses compared to diesel and electric are actually the most cost effective to run. So it's something to think about there.
Set next board meeting, January 15th, 25.
I'll make that.
Second. Been properly by Joe, second by Walt. To set the next board meeting for January 15th, 2025 to be held in the elementary library at 6 p.m. For any discussion, seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. So the motion to adjourn. Dan, Walt made the motion, Dan second to adjourn the motion, to adjourn the meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned.